All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Best Self Blueprint. So, as you all know, the mission of this podcast is to bring on people with the knowledge, insights, and experiences as to what it'll take to truly move that dial towards becoming the best version of yourself, whatever that means to you. So, this next guest has a lot of knowledge and expertise in the category of subconscious mind, as well as a few different areas that we will get into, but I want her to introduce herself. Mel, how you doing?
Hi, thank you for having me. So I'm Mel. I'm an NLP master and master hypnotherapist as well, and also a quantum physics and subconscious mind nerd. So, which is why I created my company, Holographic, through which I help other people to reclaim their inner power and just live the life that they want to live.
Heck yeah, I'm all for it. All right. So we're going to dive into it with the most basic place we could possibly start. So the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the superconscious mind. If you could just run people through like what each of those are and what roles they play.
Okay, so the basic rundown. So the conscious mind is basically everything that you're aware right now. So the fact that we're talking to each other, like you're hearing my voice, this is your conscious mind. And also all of the thoughts that you might have that you are conscious of is also your conscious mind. So it's the basic upper level. And then the subconscious mind is everything that's underneath that. So the subconscious mind does a lot of things, like a lot of things. The basic thing that you are not even conscious of is that it runs your body. So all of the breathing, getting your heart beating, the blood flowing through your veins, all of that is run by your subconscious mind. Because thank God, if we had to think about breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out all the time, we wouldn't be able to do much, really. And the subconscious, which is what is the most juicy, is that it also holds all of the beliefs and values and programmings that kind of make us who we are and how we behave and how we function on a daily basis. So everything that you've learned in childhood, like all of the beliefs that you have about the world, the way you perceive the world, all of that is stored in the subconscious mind. All of the memories are stored in the subconscious mind as well. Even the ones you don't think you remember, they are still stored in your subconscious mind. They're just not, maybe not accessible yet, or maybe you need extra help, or maybe they're being held back by the subconscious until you're ready to look at them, if you ever need to look at them. But all of that is stored in the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind also, it's like a filter. It acts like a filter. So where whatever you perceive in the world is then processed through the subconscious, and then it's kind of like distorted and filtered through the way you understand the world, which is why we all have a slightly different perception, because we all have our subconscious minds programmed in a slightly different way. And that is truly fascinating. And then the superconscious mind is a little bit less known about, and it holds many names. Like you'll hear some people call it source, or call it the universe, or call it God. Basically, the superconscious mind is this idea of the one mind that encompasses all of us, where we are all one, and everything is one, everything is energy, and that is all accessible to us. So it's the world of all of the different timelines that you're able to access, energy, dark matter, all possibilities, everything that we are connected to. And so the subconscious mind is the bridge between us and our conscious mind and what we want, and the superconscious mind. So the world of all possibilities. Does that make sense?
It does. And so I picked up on the little tidbit you talked about that you're interested, or you study quantum physics as well. So with the superconscious mind, is that essentially, if you talk about string theory, where there are these little tiny interconnected strings that make up anything and everything in our known universe, is the superconscious mind then essentially tapping into this interconnectedness of the entirety of those strings?
Yeah, so basically, superconscious is this idea that everything is interconnected, right? So we know from quantum physics that two things that were once connected are still in communication in some way. And we have a, what's the word? We have an influence over everything. You know, we have an influence over energy. And if you think about it, if we think about the theory of the Big Bang, we were all once this one thing that then exploded into all of these different things. And now it feels like it's disconnected and it's all individual things, but it's not. Everything is connected and everything is just energy. And if you go to the level of quantum physics, where just everything is mostly just empty, or what we call dark matter.
Yeah, that to me is so fascinating. So I was reading the book Biocentrism recently, and they talk about, like, you think that when you put your hand on a table, it's because of the fact that it's a solid against a solid that you can't put your hand into it. But in reality, the only amount of actual solidified energy, I guess, if you will, is the equivalent of a grain of rice in a football stadium. And so really it's not the fact that it's a solid against a solid, it's the fact that it's like charged magnetism almost pressing against that opposing force so strongly. And so when I was listening to that in the car, and I just had to start like touching my steering wheel because it was just tripping me out, thinking about the energy that really we don't think about on a daily basis. And I think in terms of the quantum physics side of things, there really is, it's such a deep rabbit hole. But at the core of it, it's just, I think really for me, like questioning everything your senses are telling you is happening, and understanding that it's just because you're the observer that those things are happening the way they're happening. And then to add that extra layer, you're perceiving it the way you're perceiving it. So
Yeah, absolutely. And there's, speaking of touching things, there is actually a theory in quantum physics called quantum touch, which says that basically we never touch anything. There's always space and just, like you said, this energy.
yeah, because when you have two
Yeah,
magnets with the same charge, you can't touch them together. You can just
yeah.
get really close. Interesting. So then so if I'm not actually touching this table, or like we can feel the sensation of different things, like our clothes and like this microphone, my laptop, all these different things, we can like feel how they feel. Is that just the specific magnetic charge between those two things then? Or how do we pick up on like the fact that this feels different than something else?
Okay, so part of this is learning. So the way we experience things is through learning, right? So one of the big part of it is, for example, if you think about pain, I don't know if I cut out.
What's that?
Oh, sorry. I everything froze on my side for
You're
a
good.
second. Okay. So for example, if you think about pain, so pain is a learned experience. So for example, this is why you have people who are able to walk on like hot coals, for example, without being in pain or burning themselves. And so, for example, if you didn't at one point learned the word solid, you wouldn't know how to describe the experience that you experience when you touch a table, for example. And so one of the big parts of the way we understand the world is through language. And if you remove language, is really everything different?
I'm sure a lot of things are, yeah.
And like, for example, I'm not sure if you speak different languages, but I speak two languages fluently and in some other ones. And like when you switch between languages, you realize how words hold different meanings almost. And so when I speak English, it's easier for me to express certain things. And when I speak French, it's easier for me to express other things. And so really a big part of the way we understand the world is through language. And this is why an art like neurolinguistic programming, for example, is so powerful, and why words are so powerful, and the way we talk to ourselves, the way we talk about the world is so powerful. So that is one of the main things that basically defines the way we experience the world. Because if you did not know the word solid and the word liquid, for example, and the word soft, would you be able to tell the difference between a table or a pillow or water?
That's true. Yeah. All right. And so like really at the end of this whole, like, I'm infinitely curious. So I could probably just talk about this for 5 hours maybe. But I feel like at the end of this lesson of like when you take away certain language, when you take away certain senses, when you take away preconceived notions, it really leaves you with such this unquenchable curiosity for what's happening around you in your life. And I think really the punchline is like keep that curiosity and question everything. So again, we're taking it to the extreme of like don't just go around like touching people's faces and trying to determine if it's soft or warm or anything like that, but it brings back that childlike passion, I feel like, and just reverence for life when you don't neglect the magic that's happening and the miracles that are happening every single moment in front of you. But I want to get back to the subconscious mind, mostly because I think in terms of like listeners, this is really what's going to start to hit home with them is we talked about, and I've seen it in your posts many times, what's happening in your subconscious mind is often what's tripping you up from achieving your goals and your dreams. So for example, like for the longest time, consciously, I knew like, oh, I want to make a lot of money. I want to do all this. And then I kept like getting so close to achieving that goal. And then I would self-sabotage or I would trip up or something would happen that I thought was just coincidence. But now I understand there are enough coincidences until it isn't a coincidence anymore. So if you could run people through like what are some of the most common blocks you see in people subconsciously that trip them up from achieving their goal?
Okay, so I am going to start by saying that there isn't really a common one, in the sense that everybody is different. And we talk a lot about limiting beliefs in the coaching world and the self-development world, and all of this comes from different places, right? Places that you would not even think are related. So like I work with some people who have struggles with money, and then it comes from a trauma that has absolutely nothing to do with money. And so this is a big one, right? I don't really do with common because everybody is different.
Mm.
I think the main part about what is tripping people up is that they try to understand from a conscious place. And when you look at the conscious mind, right, if you think consciously, for example, for yourself, why am I came so close, I self-sabotage, you won't necessarily go into the real root cause. And when you start seeing, like, for example, that something isn't working, a lot of people ask the wrong questions. A lot of people will try to go into the stories, and they'll be like, why is this not working? Why did I self-sabotage? Why did I not make the money that I want? Why can't I achieve my dreams? And why is all the stories, and why is the way the conscious mind understands the world. And when you go into the how is when the magic starts to happen. Because the how is how the subconscious mind operates. So the subconscious mind operates from programmings and strategies. And all of these are learned through repetition, for example. So when you start to understand like the how and the what is when you will actually get to the root cause of why something is repeating, why a pattern is repeating in your life. And when you see those patterns repeating, like for example, you keep getting so close and then something doesn't happen, is usually where there is a strategy there and a programming.
So
does that make sense?
it does. So what would the process be? So like, let's take my own case study from 3-4 years ago. So I was at that point where I kept trying to, put money in savings or invest money, and it, in my head, it felt like despite consciously doing everything in my power to, create more wealth for myself and my life, it just wasn't happening. And again, now in hindsight, knowing the things I know, I was able to find people to ask the right questions and help me figure it out. But let's say you're talking to the Trevor from 3 years ago, and he comes to you and says, these are the instances of like where I tripped up, where I self-sabotaged. How do I figure out how to fix this? What do you start to run people through and figure out to find that core block?
Okay, so if you're doing with someone else, obviously you can go very deep in the subconscious mind through different techniques that kind of put the conscious mind to the side. But if you were to do it by yourself, so a very powerful question to ask yourself instead of why did I not succeed would be like, how is it possible that I didn't succeed? And then that question kind of triggers something in the subconscious mind. And one of the principles of neurolinguistic programming, and a quote by the founder of NLP, is the quality of your life is defined by the quality of the questions you ask yourself.
I like that.
Right? It's not about the answers, right? Because this is a conscious process, right? That we're always out here trying to look for the answers, but we don't know how to ask the right questions. And you ask the question, why is this not working? You're going to come up with a story. Your conscious mind is going to try to make conscious sense of it. So how is it possible that this doesn't work out? What is this teaching me? What did I learn from this? Because failure is not a thing. There is no failure, only feedback. What did I do that I can, what did I learn from this outcome that I can now do differently? And so you start looking at that, and then you start maybe seeing, oh, this is where things didn't work out. Okay, why did things not work out? Now, I'm not sure what you mean specifically by self-sabotaging, but you would look at that, for example. So how did I self-sabotage? What specifically did I do? And then what is the reason for me to do that? Like, what was the logic behind it? Did it stem from fear? Did it stem from, if it stemmed from fear, what fear did it stem from? What does this remind me of? Where do I not feel safe to be in that position where I have what I want? So when you start asking yourself all of these questions, you start really discovering, okay, what is going on behind I can see? Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. And I love the fact that you reverted back to like, make sure you're asking the right questions, because that's actually where I found out how to untap that potential. Was I realized I was asking the wrong questions for years, and it really creates this negative feedback loop, because you believe you're asking the right questions at the time, right? And then you ask the questions, you find the answers, and then it still doesn't help. And so that's where I realized I had to backtrack one step further and figure out, okay, what is the question I'm asking? And so I think that's really, really useful for people. I think another thing that you said, and this is a very key word, is fear. Are you acting out of fear or out of love? Because I truly believe those are the two. When you really boil it down, you're acting out of a state of fear or out of a state of love. Now, you talk a lot about people being stopped from truly like loving themselves. And I think when you're not in a state where you're truly loving yourself, you're going to be acting the vast majority in that state of fear in general. So how do you get people to start transitioning into loving themselves more?
Ooh, okay, that's a deep one, because usually our sense of self-love stems from the way we were loved in the past, right? The way we learned love. And I think the very beginning of self-love is to understand that no matter what's happened in your outside world, you are enough. You are always enough. There is nothing wrong with you, and you are always doing the best that you can with the resources that you have. So this is a very, like, the very basics of self-love, I would say. And then how to start loving yourself more and being more in that state is all about undoing the programmings that you have around your sense of worth and your sense of being lovable. And if you look at the reason why people might not be loving themselves or might be really harsh on themselves, usually you go back into their childhood and you see a parent that wasn't maybe expressing love in the best way, or maybe their parents were absent, or maybe, I don't know, a teacher was really harsh with them and making them feel less than. And so it's all about reclaiming that and understanding that and being okay with the fact that it is a part of your story, but it doesn't hold power over you anymore.
Yeah. So I'm very curious what your perspective is on this. So one of my fundamental points with people is if they really, I wouldn't even say like not loving themselves, but just not proud of themselves in the moment. My first piece of advice is always build a track record with yourself. So like let's revert back to if there's a lack of self-love, it's because of partially maybe someone thinks they're not physically attractive enough for love. Maybe someone thinks, there's a certain personality trait about them that is the reason why they don't deserve love. Or maybe it's from a memory or some type of trauma or emotional dis-ease. But I always revert back to, if like, let's say someone, it's because of their physical appearance, just from, personal trainer, health coach standpoint. I always tell people, like, yeah, you're not going to be able to just snap your fingers and all of a sudden have like washboard abs and bulging biceps, but you can put into practice and start the process and build that track record with yourself that you're moving in the direction you want to move. Because at the end of the day, the only destination in life is when you check out of it. Otherwise, the entirety of life is a process and a pursuit. So I feel like as long as that arrow is going in the direction of progress based on your habits, based on your words, your thoughts, your actions, that will start to develop that increased sense of self-worth in a way. Is that part of what you have people do, is start developing the habits that are aligned with who they want to be? Or is that like way off base with your teachings?
So I would say that's a very, very small part of my work. So that's something that I would have my clients do in between sessions sometimes, in order to reinforce some of the work that we do in our sessions. And obviously, creating habits is really important because the subconscious mind learns new things through repetition also. So the more you reinforce a positive habit, the more it's going to become strategy, and then to that point where you do it without even realizing, right? Like it will be second nature, like breathing or brushing your teeth in the morning. And However, something that's very important to work alongside with habits is to work on the values behind the habits that you want to create and the goals that you want to achieve. And the values are very often something really tricky that a lot of people don't necessarily understand because they think values are always good. But in today's society, we have values that sometimes stem from a place of fear or a place of lack. And if you think, for example, about someone, for example, a client who comes to you with, I want super like a six pack because I want to feel more confident and I want to look my best. If that person wants to have a six pack out of love because they freaking love themselves and they think they already look amazing, but they would look super amazing with a six pack, it will be a lot easier for them to go through the process. If someone comes with, I want a six pack because I'm not lovable the way I look, then, there might be something in their subconscious mind that will make the process harder. And, all beliefs are learned belief, right? I believe that, we all look amazing, no matter if we have a six pack or not. And, for a lot of people, we want to believe that as well. But when we look in the mirror and we don't have the six pack, or we don't have the super abs or whatever, or we're not skinny as women, for example, that's a big one. And we look at ourselves in the mirror and we don't see something that we like. And that is learned through, what we see in our everyday life. It's that repetition that we get through the media, for example, that, a body worthy of love looks this way. And so that would be a really, really big one to, I guess, get back to the sense of my worth is not defined by the way I look. And it doesn't diminish the fact that I want to look different. That's totally fine. We go through life wanting to improve ourselves, right? Our subconscious mind's goal is for us to achieve the best possible version of ourselves, right? And working out, eating healthy, being in the best shape is a really good thing. But when it stems from a place of like not loving ourselves and wanting to look different because we don't think we are already enough, then that's when things can become difficult.
Yeah. So oh man. All right. This is one of my passion points, if you will, is I am a big energy guy. Like I truly believe that the energy in which the state that you're in while you're pursuing a goal is a big determining factor of how or when you will, or if you will achieve that thing. So like you're talking about, if we're just going to stay on the six pack thing, why not? So if you're someone who's trying to get a six pack and you're going in the gym and having a blast and like crushing your workouts, and you're going out and, doing activities with friends that are conducive to getting that six pack, like playing sports or going hiking or doing all these things, and you're making delicious homemade meals and like you're having fun with that, that's out of a state of like positive energy. And so I think when you're in that state, you're attracting gratitude, you're attracting these positive things. And I'm a big believer in the law of attraction, in that essence of when you're emitting and radiating these positive energies and you're doing it with an intensity, that stuff is going to reverb back to you, however it may. And usually if you have that set intention of the goal, it's going to reverb with that set intention coming back to you. Now, if you're going after these things, like you're talking about, in a state of fear, and it's like, I want these six pack abs because I'm scared to look this way, or because I'm scared that maybe these people won't find me attractive if I don't have this thing. And so, you're going to the gym and you're frantic during your workouts, you're anxious during your workouts, and then you're toxically going out and overworking and overtraining and just overdoing it because you're so fearful, I think that energy too is going to come back at you in all these different ways. And a big part of that does come down to my beliefs. Obviously, that's my opinion. But it's been very much instilled in me, the people I've worked with, friends, family, all that stuff. Is that something that you're big on too, is like getting people in the right energy so that when they pursue their goals, they're doing it in a way that's going to attract that like positivity?
Absolutely. So that's a really big part of my work actually, is definitely getting people in the right state so that they can, embody the version of themselves that has what they want. And I guess I don't work so much with with positivity or that kind of energy, because I go straight into the subconscious mind and look at, okay, this is the programming that you currently have. This is where it stems from. We're going to go into that memory, get what we need to learn from it, and resolve that so that it doesn't keep playing out in your life. And then when you do that, when you go into the little pocket of the subconscious mind that holds that programming that isn't serving you, then naturally you will become more positive about whatever is going on, and you will be in the right state to attract whatever it is that you want. And it makes such a big difference, right? Being in the right state, because like you said, if you go after the six pack with that sense of fear and dread, and first of all, you might not enjoy the journey. And also it's going to be so much harder for you to even get the results, because your subconscious mind plays a big part in the way your body looks, in the way your body functions. So if you are doing and maybe you've seen that happen, people who are doing all of the right things and maybe working their asses off and eating the right foods, but there is something that isn't getting them the same results as fast as someone else, for example, who isn't just so excited about it, doing it out of love, not out of I need to look this way to get the girls, or whatever it is, or to be seen as a worthy person. And that plays such a huge part into it, definitely.
Yeah. So, and oh man, all right. Yeah. So we'll cap it at this. For anyone listening, any goal you have, any dream you want to achieve, whether you do it by yourself or you work with someone amazing like Mel, make sure that you're identifying your programming, you're asking the right questions, and you're setting yourself and putting yourself in the right state so that you're swimming with the stream and not against the stream. Because if anyone's ever tried to swim upstream, it is super annoying. And that is exactly what's happening in your everyday life if you don't dial in on those three things. Now, I do want to switch over to something that personally I am very, very fascinated by, and it's feminine and masculine energy. So I don't know if you get this a lot with, especially with what you do, but I have so many people when I bring up this topic say well, no, if I'm a man, I should be masculine. If I'm a woman, I should be feminine. But that's not at all how that works. I mean, both men and women should be healthily exhibiting both of these energies and leveraging them and optimizing them. If you could run through what it looks like for, a man and a woman to be optimizing their masculine and feminine energies, I just think that'll be really useful for people listening.
Okay, so this is such a yeah, it's a topic that's really close to my heart, because a year ago I had no idea about this stuff. And I think both as men and women, we grow up in a society that doesn't really value the right side of both the feminine and the masculine. And so we end up being all sorts of out of balance. And that is not great, obviously. So for those who don't really know about masculine and feminine energies, um, the feminine is more about the flow and the cycles of life and going with the intuition, and the more feeling sides of things, the more like community side of things. And the masculine is more about the doing the work and like setting goals and like um, kind of the go-getter energy, right? And obviously we naturally have all of these inside of us, all of these energy inside of us, but we live in a society where we are encouraged to just exhaust ourselves into work and not rest and not really express our emotions, not really process our emotions, not really communicate our needs and boundaries. And all of that leaves us with really out of whack feminine and masculine energies, right? We see a lot of men who don't feel comfortable expressing their emotions and their feelings. And we see a lot of women who simply do not know how to rest, and do not know how to kind of be more in sync with their natural cycles. And we work through um, every different part of our cycle through to exhaustion. And then we see, obviously that's how we end up with such high levels of anxiety and depression. And that's not great, right?
Yeah. So you touched on something that is increasingly more a passion of mine to talk about, which is that I think it's a very outdated concept that masculine energy has been conceived among at least American society as like a real man doesn't cry, a real man doesn't, get scared, a real man is just like tough, and I just think that's so stupid. No offense to anyone who thinks that, but you have all of these emotions. You do. And I think, again, if we get into the subconscious aspect of this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just spitballing, but I feel like the more you try to like tuck all of that other stuff away, the more you're kind of stuffing negative, toxic items into that giant subconscious ocean. And really, if you want to be a man, man up to the fact that you do need to cry, man up to the fact that you do, love someone deeply and want to express that to them. And so I think if we're talking like toxic masculinity is shoving aside any and all emotions so that you can look like a man. And if you really want to, prove that you're a man and you can stand up for yourself, like stand up for all of yourself, not just the parts you want people to see.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. And
So what does it look like, or at least what have you seen? Because obviously as a man, it's a lot easier for me to pick up on like toxic masculinity traits. Are there toxic femininity traits? I don't even know if that's the right word. Feminine energy traits as well. Oh, hello.
sorry, yeah, there was a little bit of freezing there.
Oh, that's all right. Okay.
Can you
So
repeat the question?
so what I was saying is there are toxic masculinity traits that I think people pick up on a lot more frequently. But are there any like toxic feminine energy traits that you see as well? You were talking about like working through the entire cycle, not really giving your body rest. Are there other things that women can look out for as well? Because for men, I feel like for the most part, it is that more like emotional, um, allowing yourself to be cared for type of toxicity that we need to let go of. What have you seen on the feminine side?
So the feminine side would be almost like the opposite. So not like Um, Not establishing boundaries for yourself, for example, and always putting yourself last and always giving to others before giving to yourself. Um, Overworking would be more like you're stepping too much into the masculine. And yeah, just not allowing the natural need for rest and for looking after yourself.
So one thing is have you found, is it, because I'm picturing like yin yang with this, right? Do you find there is like a perfect balance with this, or is it really just dependent on the person, their lifestyle, their personality, like that balance shifts a little bit?
So with everything in life, I don't believe there is a like one solution, one fits all solution. I think it's really about the individual and about self-awareness and like really just observing your life and where you might feel like, okay, I am starting to feel really exhausted, or I am starting to feel a big lack of motivation and drive. And then when you look at those specific things, you might see, okay, I'm a little bit like my feminine energy is out of whack, my masculine energy is out of whack. I need to look at this. What can I do to gain my motivation and my drive back? If you're, if your masculine energy as being kind of drowning, or like where can I slow down and recharge my energy when you've been like putting your feminine energy to the side. So yeah, I think that's how you find the perfect balance for yourself, is just looking, okay, does this feel good? Simply, does this feel good, or does this feel like I'm constantly pushing?
Yeah. Yeah, that, oh man, that's so true. And I resonate with that so much because there was a long stretch of time in my life where I did feel like I was very productive. I was getting a lot of stuff done, but it felt like I was carrying a giant cement block behind me, like every single thing I did. And it wasn't until I really started diving into all of the energy based thinking and understanding how how impactful like what and how you're feeling is to optimizing going through life in general. And I do think finding your balance of feminine and masculine energy and doing it in a healthy way is one of those ways to drop that cement block.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, our bodies are very, very smart, right? They tell us when something's out of whack also. So just look at the way you feel physically as well. Like, are you constantly exhausted? Do you struggle sleeping at night? Like, how's your digestion? Do you have aches and pains in your body? Like, does your body feel heavy or does it feel light? Like, just all of those things. Do you get sick very easily? All of those things will tell you something about yourself, definitely. And like, do you need to look at your life and what you're doing and how you're doing things? And maybe do you need to adjust some things?
Listen to your body, people. That is so true. All right. So knowing what this podcast is about, being self-development, health, wellness, just kind of becoming the best version of yourself. If you could give the listeners one piece of advice based on everything that we've talked about, or just like to tie it up in a cute little bow to finish it off, like what's one big thing that you would say to the people listening?
Okay, so I'm gonna talk about the thing that really shifted my life, that I learned on my NLP training, which is one of the basis of NLP, is that you are in charge of your mind and therefore you are in charge of your results. And that is completely shifting you out of victim mindset. So whatever happens, it is not happening to you. It's happening because there is something to learn. And so again, it's about asking yourself the right questions instead of going, why is this happening to me? And throwing yourself a pity party, which if something really shitty is happening to you, it happens. By any means, feel the emotions, don't repress them. Just if you need to cry, if you need to have a little nervous breakdown, just do that. But then get back in the control. And you get back in control by saying, okay, what is this teaching me? How can I come out of it stronger? What can I do differently? And by knowing that you are in charge of your mind, you are in charge of the way you perceive life, you can always, always keep going and always learn something new and grow in the process.
Oh man. Yes, I love that. All right. So this is actually something I have a lot of people who like after they meet me a few times, especially if it's like something with work or something with coaching, I always get the comment like, you're always so positive, which, thank you to people who say that. I appreciate it. At the end of the day, I still think, at least in my head, I think very similarly to a lot of people when it comes to natural reaction to situations. But that is the distinction is I I have put a lot of time and effort into cultivating this habit of what question should I be asking? So I don't even just allow my mind to automatically fill in the blank of what question it asks. I think like, what is the question here? So if something crappy happens, I let the natural reaction come out. If it is crying, if it is a mental breakdown, if it is rolling up the windows in my car so I can scream a little bit. Just kidding. I don't usually do that, but it would be fun. I might try it, but it really does go back to that. Like, what is this teaching me? Is this to make me stronger? Is this to teach me to be more vulnerable? Is this to like what is it? What's the question that the universe wants me to ask myself right now? Again, God, the universe, Gaia, Mother Nature, Santa Claus, whatever you believe in. I think that's an amazing place to leave it off with. So I have one more question. I ask this to everybody at the end, but before I ask, where can people follow you, connect with you, learn more about you, whether it's social media, coaching, website? Just let the people know.
Okay, so people can find me on my Instagram, which is where I'm most active in posting Monday to Friday, a post every day. So my Instagram is Helographic. So that's HealOGRAPHIC. Hope I spelled that right. And then if you want to work with me, you can access my services through the link in my bio on Instagram or on my website at helographic.com.
All right. And that will be in the comment section below. I say this for every guest, but that's because I vet every guest. Seriously, you should go check it out. I started following her. For those of you who saw the Yari episode, Yari actually works with her, spoke very, 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 very highly of her, which Yari has already spoken highly of. So that's saying something. And I ended up, most people binge on Netflix. I binged her Instagram page because it was just amazing content all the way down. So go check it out, give her a follow. And then obviously, I always let people know this. Let other people know this as well. If you got anything from this episode, whether it was a good piece of information, just a change in perspective from the way you were thinking, and you know someone who could benefit from listening to this, which everyone has a subconscious and everyone has feminine and masculine energy. So everyone can learn from this. So share it with people. If you have questions, definitely put them in the comments. Hit that like button if you liked it. And I think that's all we got. But before we get going, Mel, one last question. What right now for you is the next step in you becoming your best self?
Ooh. Right now I'm working through a lot of traumas that are kind of getting in the way. So that's what I'm doing right now, working through some of the difficult stuff that's stored in my subconscious.
That must be an interesting practice, knowing the things you know, having to do the work on yourself. It's like being the sculptor and the sculpture, like the painting and the painter.
It is. I mean, I do a lot of work on myself, but I'm a big advocate of working with other people. And I do work with other people. I'm currently taking a course and also working with a coach because obviously there is only so far I can take myself. So
Seriously. All right. We're going to end it on that point. Even an expert is being coached. Like, I hope people really let that sink in. Like, even I get trained by other fitness coaches. Like, no matter how good you are, which I'm guessing not many people listening are as inclined to subconscious tendencies as Mel is, like, go get a coach. So we'll leave it with that. Mel, thank you so much for coming on here. I understand you're in the jungle basically right now in Cancun. So I appreciate you finding the time and finding the Wi-Fi to get on here. For everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning in, for getting all the way to the end. Again, we're trying to spread this. It's a free resource. We want as many people as possible to tune in, share with people, let the people know what's going on. And until next week, keep in that pursuit.